With Season 2 of Squid Game being over, on a huge cliffhanger too, we're left wondering what games are in store for Season 3. In this video, we will be covering 6 possible games that will likely be in Season 3. Alright, let's move on to a possible game in Squid Game Season 3, and this one comes straight from the Korean tradition. Let's talk about Juldariji, or as you might know it, Korean Tug of War. Now, before you go, but we already had Tug of War in Season 1. Yeah, we did, but hear me out. This version could take things to a whole new level of intensity and brutality. For those of you unfamiliar, Juldariji is a traditional Korean tug of war game played during festivals. 2 large teams pull on opposite ends of a massive rope, often several feet thick. The goal is to grab the opposing team across a designated marker. Unlike standard tug of war, Juldariji ropes usually have a smaller rope attached for additional grip, and strategy plays a huge role. Teams rely on rhythm, chanting, and teamwork rather than just brute strength. Some versions have time limits, where the team ahead when time runs out wins. This game symbolizes unity and good fortune for communities. One of the biggest ways they could change things up is by raising the stakes, literally. Instead of pulling over a simple drop, imagine the teams playing on a collapsing bridge or above a pit of spikes. The moment one team starts losing their grip, the floor beneath them opens up, sending them plummeting to their deaths. And since Squid Game loves making things as psychological as possible, here's another possibility: weighted handicaps. What if players weren't just split into teams at random, but instead had to buy their teammates with the money they've earned so far? Stronger players would cost more, and if you washed too much money too early, you might not have enough for future rounds. Or worse, you'd be left with the weakest teammates, making survival nearly impossible. Another way they could twist the game is by making it timed. In traditional Juldariji, teams have a certain amount of time to pull the rope a set distance. But what if, instead of a time limit, the losing team's platform slowly tilts towards a drop, meaning that even if you don't get yanked off, you'd eventually slide into your doom. Scary, but let's hope it doesn't get as twisted and evil as this. For the second game, we have Tuho, a traditional Korean game that might just get a horrifying upgrade. Yeah, as you guessed it, we're pretty much just aiming at popular Korean traditional games for now. But if you've never heard of Tuho before, it's a game of precision and patience. Players take turns throwing small wooden or metal arrows into a narrow-necked jar. Simple, right? Well, Squid Game is anything but simple. If this game makes it into Season 3, expect it to be a psychological and physical nightmare. So, how could they make Tuho absolutely terrifying? Imagine this. Players are standing on small, unstable platforms suspended over a deadly drop. Every missed throw, their platform shrinks or tilts slightly, making the next shot even harder. Eventually, the players who fail too many times, they're eliminated. Bye-bye. This wouldn't just be about skill, but it would also be about staying calm under pressure. Players who panic and rush their shots, instant elimination. Okay, hear me out. What if each arrow was secretly rigged? Some arrows might explode on impact, eliminating the player instantly, while others might be weighted differently, making them harder to throw accurately. This would bring a lot of random moments and players would be really scared. I mean, more than usual. They wouldn't know if their next throw would be their last. Let's make things even worse. What if the last round of the game had only one winning slot? If too many players survive the early rounds, the final phase could force them into a one-shot elimination round. One throw, one chance. Miss, and you're out for good. This can lead to some heartbreaking moments, where players who were performing well the entire time suddenly lose everything with a single bad throw. Okay, I might have added too much what-if scenarios. There's still a possibility that we could see this game, but I hope we don't see it this cruel and twisted. Speaking of cruel and twisted, the third game I think it's going to be in Squid Game Season 3 is Siriam, also known as Korean traditional wrestling. Now, if you've never heard of this one, think of it like sumo wrestling, but with more strategy and technique, and in Squid Game, a whole lot more brutality. So how does Siriam normally work? Well, in the traditional game, 2 opponents grab each other's belts, called a satpa, I hope I pronounced that well, and attempt to throw their opponent to the ground. The first person to touch the sand with any part of their body other than their feet loses. Sounds simple, right? But you already know Squid Game is about to turn this into something way more intense. Here's where things get a lot psychologically messed up. Siriam relies a lot on strength and skill, but in Squid Game, matchups would be completely random. That means a small, weaker opponent will be forced to fight against someone twice their size. No skill, no chance? Too bad. Even worse, what if players had to choose their opponent? Like in the marble game, you would think that this was a game where you had to work with your partner. I mean, you can picture some of the matchups matches. Okay, we have player 007 and his mother, player 149, or if you better know them as Jang Jeom-ja and Park Yong-sik. Could you imagine them having a fight? Or player 333, aka Lee Myung-ji, aka MG Coin, fighting his pregnant ex-girlfriend, player 222, aka Kim Jong-hee. My god, they all have a lot of aliases in this freaking show, don't they? What I'm trying to say is that those fights will be devastating, and we will probably see some very tragic sacrifices. Player 149 sacrificing herself to protect her son, and player 333, Lee Myung-ji, sacrificing himself for their unborn child. To really crank up the intensity, they can even add a strict time limit to each match. If the fight drags on too much, both players get eliminated. This would force players to take risks, leading to faster, desperate, and way more brutal fights. Honestly, this would be just as tragic, if not more tragic, than the marble game in Season 1. So I really hope it doesn't come to this game. And for the fourth game in Squid Game Season 3, we have Daksaum, also known as Chicken Fight. As I'm sure most of you have never played this game before, it's basically a test of balance, strength, and pure survival instinct. And in Squid Game, you pretty much already know it's about to get way brutal. So how does Daksaum work? Well, in the traditional version, players hop on one leg while using their body to try and knock their opponent over. The last person standing wins the round. It's a simple game that kids play for fun, but in case you forgot, we're talking about Squid Game, so it's not gonna be so lovey-dovey. Imagine this. Instead of just a normal playground, players are forced to fight on top of a narrow platform suspended over a deadly drop. One wrong move, you're gone. Players must not only keep their balance on one leg, but they also have to avoid getting knocked off by their opponent. And just to raise up the difficulty, what if the platforms start moving? 1 second, you're hopping safely. The next, the floor shifts beneath you, forcing you to react fast or plummet to your doom. And we also get the question like from the last game I mentioned, and that is, what if you get to choose your partner? We would see more tragic moments, sacrifices, and betrayals. And imagine this. What if, after picking an opponent, the game randomly changed the rules? Maybe suddenly one player has to fight blindfolded, or they both have to hold a heavy weight while hopping. No one would know what's coming next, forcing players to adapt on the spot. What if it wasn't just a one-on-one fight? Imagine if 4 players were put into a ring and told that only one could survive. That means players can team up against a stronger opponent, but eventually someone has to turn on their ally. This would turn the game into a chaotic free-for-all, where temporary alliances form and break in seconds. Who would you trust? And more importantly, who would you stab in the back when it's time to survive? The most brutal twist? If you accidentally put your second leg down, you're instantly eliminated. Imagine the pressure of trying to stay balanced while dodging attacks, knowing that one slip-up can mean the end. Honestly, there are a lot of what-ifs in this game, and it's very, very intense. I hope we get something less horrifying. Moving on, this potential has been teased in the mid-credits scene of Season 2, and this is probably the most popular game that the fans are predicting that might happen in Season 3. At the end of Squid Game Season 2, a brief mid-credits scene teases a major element from the upcoming third season. In the scene, we see players 96, 100, and 353 entering a new room in preparation for the next challenge. Inside, the familiar red light green light doll Young-hee is standing alongside a new figure, her robotic boyfriend, Chol-soo. I mean, what kind of sick and twisted relationship do these horrifying robotic dolls have? Anyways, unlike Young-hee, who wears red, Chol-soo is dressed in green, resembling a young boy. The scene abruptly ends as a flashing red and green light illuminates the room before cutting back to the credits. This short yet intriguing glimpse has sparked major fan speculation about what this new game could be, especially with hints that it may be a fresh take on a classic concept. I mean, we kind of expect it. Think about it. In Season 1, that was the first game, and as well in Season 2. But putting it the third time might feel a bit repetitive, and so they had to change it up a little bit. I'm joking. But according to Squid Game creator Hwang Dong-hyuk, the teased game in this scene will be the most exciting one of Season 3. With 3 more games still yet to be revealed, this promises to be a major highlight of the upcoming season. While exact details remain unknown, Hwang's enthusiasm suggests that the game will open Season 3 with a bang. If he's hyping it up this much, we can probably expect something really cool. But if there's going to be another season, please just don't leave it on a cliffhanger like the last one, Director Hwang. I'm kidding, guys. Season 3 is the last season. Damn, I'll miss this show. And even though the official rules of the game have not yet been confirmed, many believe it could be a twisted variation of red light, green light. The railroad track track-style light flashing from red to green hints at a connection, leading to theories that this challenge will feature similar mechanics, but with an added layer of complexity. One of the most common predictions is that the game will involve a new version of red light, green light, explaining the return of the Young Hee doll and the flashing lights. However, the addition of Chol-soo may introduce a unique element, preventing players from using others as cover. In Season 1, some contestants cleverly hid behind others to avoid detection, and we see even more of this in Season 2 as well. With Chol-soo possibly monitoring players' backs, this strategy might no longer be an option. The most popular theory, though, is that this game will be based on the children's nursery rhyme Jack and Jill, but with a deadly twist. In this version, players roll a colored die to move to a corresponding space, and then spin a wheel to determine their fate. If the wheel lands on a well, they pass their turn. However, if it lands on a bucket, they may have to start over, or worse, face elimination. In this case, Young Hee and Chol-soo could represent Jack and Jill, while the flashing red and green lights can dictate where players can move. As I said earlier, most fans on TikTok and Reddit speculate that if this game is indeed Jack and Jill, contestants might be forced to pair up and carry water up a hill, similar to the nursery rhyme. But the real twist could come if the game is merged with red light, green light mechanics, only allowing players to move when the light is green. This could make the game significantly more strategic and dangerous. Basically, red light, green light on steroids. Another Reddit theory suggests that this challenge will be similar to the Marbles game from Season 1, where players are forced to team up in pairs, only for one of them to ultimately face elimination. This speculation goes even further, predicting that after a conflict with the guards, 68 players will remain, and this game will eliminate half of them. If this theory is correct, it could lead to some heart-wrenching sacrifices. Good, it's not like we had enough in the previous 2 seasons. For instance, many believe that player 333, Myung-ji, might sacrifice himself to save his pregnant ex-girlfriend, player 222, Jang Hee. Similarly, the mother and son duo could find themselves paired up, with one of them making the ultimate decision to save the other. If this game is highly physical, players like Kim Jun and Jang Jeum-ja would be in serious danger. Now, about Jack and Jill, I didn't want to burst your bubble, fans, but I think that game isn't that much likely to be in Season 3, unlike this game. Trust me, this prediction makes total sense. First of all, unlike the other Squid Game challenges, Jack and Jill isn't a traditional playground game, but rather a board game inspired by a nursery rhyme. While it may be well known in some places, it's far from a universally recognized childhood game, and more importantly, it's not rooted in Korean culture. In contrast, every game we've seen in Squid Game so far has strong ties to traditional Korean childhood games, even if some, like Tug of War, are played in other countries as well. The origin of the Jack and Jill theory remains unclear, but the chances of it actually being the next game are pretty slim. We also already know that the dolls are named Jack and Jill. As we mentioned before, their names are Young Hee and Chol-soo. Plus, the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme involves climbing a hill to fetch a pail of water, and from what we've seen of the game's setting, there's no indication of a hill or water buckets being involved. What's confusing is the railroad crossing sign seen in the teaser. How exactly does that fit into Jack and Jill? Many of these theories seem to be based solely on the fact that Young Hee and Chol-soo are a boy and a girl, but that alone isn't enough to link the game to the classic nursery rhyme. So, what's a more likely alternative? Many believe the game will actually be Dong 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 Daimon, a traditional Korean children's game that functions similarly to London Bridge in Western culture. The rules are pretty simple. 2 people form a bridge by holding hands, while the rest of the players create a conga line and move underneath the bridge as a song plays. When the music stops, the bridge collapses, and whoever is caught between it is eliminated. In the Squid Game version, it's likely that Young Hee and Chol-soo will form the bridge, and players will have to move as long as the light is green. But once the music stops, the light turns red and the bridge collapses, eliminating anyone trapped in the middle. Oh wow, that doesn't sound terrifying at all. Another theory is that the game might resemble a railway test, serving as both a game and a punishment. Possibly as a consequence of Ji-hoon's rebellion, players could be forced into a brutal dilemma: sacrifice 5 people or eliminate just 1 in order to thin out the competition. Regardless of what the game turns out to be, Squid Game creator Hwang Dong-hyuk has promised that this challenge will be the most exciting game of Season 3. And honestly, I'm super excited to see what twisted surprises are in store, even if this isn't the exact game we get. And as I said in the beginning, Season 3 is clearly continuing the Squid Game tradition of starting things off with a brutal twist on red light, green light. Either way, we will get a pretty exciting season. I just hope it can live up to the hype. And what games do you think will be in Season 3? Did I leave something out? Let me know in the comments down below.